Greetings everyone and welcome back to 365 Days of Prog. Today we're going to be reviewing Circles by Gavin Harrison and 05 Rick.
Hi, my name's Naomi. I'm an avid progressive rock fan, but I'm a long ways from knowing all the prog albums out there. But this year, I'm gonna give it a try. This is 365 Days of Prog.
But of course, before we get into this video, I wanted to let you all know that tomorrow at 1 PM EST, I will be doing a very special live stream. Now, as you can see down here, I will be doing a live stream in which I'm gonna take song requests from the crowd. So if you're gonna join this live stream, you can suggest a song that I should play and we'll listen to it and I'll react to it together on the live stream itself. Of course, there are two rules. The songs have to be some sort of prog songs and they can't surpass 7 minutes of runtime. If that sounds like something you'd be interested in, make sure to check in for tomorrow's live stream again at 1 PM EST. Now let's move on to some of my favorite bits from this album, which is honestly pretty much impressive that this album even has some favorite bits. So anyway, here are some of my favorite bits from this album. So today we're gonna be reviewing Circles, the second album on the list that was made by two separate players which are together on this album but not as a band. And these two players and people are Gavin Harrison and 05 Rick. Gavin Harrison of course being a very renowned drummer and percussionist, and 05 Rick being very much an unknown multi-instrumentalist and vocalist. Now putting the odd names aside, because you all know that Harrison is a very odd name, the two of them have a pretty interesting history together. So Gavin Harrison, the well-renowned drummer for Porcupine Tree, King Crimson, and even later on for the Pineapple Thief, of which we've reviewed their album Disillusion, he was basically browsing MySpace back in 2006 when one day he got a message from a fan who wanted him to hear his music. And that fan happened to be 05 Rick, who, for the love of God, I can't find his real name anywhere online. If anyone knows it, please tell me it down in the comments. I really have no idea, but because saying 05 Rick is just too laborious for me, I'm just gonna call him by the simpler name Osric. So he approached Harrison with his own original materials, and Harrison miraculously actually listened to them and he really liked what he heard. So from then on, some more MySpace chatting ensued, and the two decided that they were gonna meet together and try and create music. Now this is a disclaimer for anyone, I'm just putting this one out there. If you meet people online, don't go ahead and meet them in real life. You don't know who these people are, of course, unless they send you their music and it sounds good. In that case, nothing could possibly go wrong, and you should totally meet strangers that you've met online in real life. And one thing led to another, and the two started recording together and they worked on their debut album as a duo, and that album came out in 2007 and it was called Drop. Now, as I understand, that album is pretty similar to the one that we're reviewing today, so I'm just gonna skip talking about it entirely and instead talk about today's album, which is the 2009 release called Circles. So this is the point where I'm gonna halt our progression with this review and interject some of my personal opinions and thoughts that I had in going into this album. So Gavin Harrison is known to be an amazing drummer. I've heard him before on the Pineapple Thief's Disillusion album, and I've seen him play live in the Night of the Prog festival that took place about a month ago. And honestly, despite a lot of people regarding him as just a mastermind of drumming in nowadays prog, I've never really seen eye to eye with that statement, and I've never really been convinced otherwise about his skill as a drummer. I am well aware that he is a skilled drummer as a whole, but honestly, I've never really seen any reason for him being, over the top and better than the rest. And the truth is, it's really hard for drummers to actually surface and get known by people. There is a reason why people like Bill Bruford or Carl Palmer are better known than many other drummers, and that's because they were really, inventive in the style of their playing, and their drums were basically very much heard and never quite in the background, not doing anything special, and people caught on to that and regarded them as being great drummers as a whole. And honestly, I never really saw that with Harrison. So getting into today's album, I was seeking some sort of redemption from him. I was seeking to see that I was wrong, and that Gavin Harrison was a drummer unmatched, and that he was a whole lot better than I ever thought he would be. And you know what? Unfortunately, this album really didn't convince me otherwise. In my personal opinion, honestly, I think he was just in the right place at the right time. He was and still is a part of Porcupine Tree, which is probably the best known progressive rock band of the modern era, so of course people are gonna know his name, but at the same time people know Nick Mason's name and Ringo Starr, and that doesn't mean that these guys are excellent drummers. And yes, while we do get some polyrhythms and unconventional grooves and everything's very high octane, I honestly really wasn't that impressed by what Harrison had to offer on here. And it's not that I'm saying that a drummer always has to be 100% all out guns blazing, but again, this album is half your interjection of the music. I would have at least expected something a bit more impressive, and moreover than all, just more memorable. And this directly leads me to my next criticism of this album, and that's this album being very much just overly forgettable. And honestly, I do believe that this is one of, if not the most forgettable album I've heard on the list so far, and that's a lot. Yes, maybe for the first 2 minutes of this album I was kinda impressed by their abilities and what both parties brought to the table, but honestly, from that point onwards, for the rest of like the 40 something minutes of this album, I was depressingly unimpressed by this album. It was monotonous, repetitive, I couldn't tell each song from another, it was just a plethora of nothingness. I was so indifferent towards everything that I've heard that it was definitely making me suffer. Yes, I do wish that I could have enjoyed some more of that extended range bass by Osric, or some of the interesting jazzy solos here and there, but honestly I really couldn't, seeing as this entire album felt like one continuous song. And it's not because of great seamless transitions, it's because that nothing set one song apart from the other. And I'm well aware that devout viewers of this series listen to each and every single album that I listen to as well, but honestly, if you're one of those viewers and you're watching this video right now, please just don't go ahead and check this album out. Don't. It's really a waste of time. I'm never coming back to this one if this wasn't clear already. It's just a very boring album which I had to suffer through, but fortunately it isn't that long. But unfortunately it did make me appreciate Gavin Harrison even less as a person, because now not only do I know that he's not that interesting of a musician, at least in my personal opinion, I can't believe that as like a person and as a musician he let this piece of music come out and see the light of day, because honestly it's pretty embarrassing. And Osric, I am also disappointed of you, but at the same time I really have no idea who you are. Not a lot of people know who you are, so you know what, you're getting a pass. But as for this album, I really don't wish to talk about it any further. Haha, the old fuck you cover. I love when they do this. At least a bad album has a bad cover for it, because this cover, it's atrocious. There is nothing good about it. I know that it isn't, hard to look at, it's not gory, it isn't something like Buckethead's cover, but I really hate the staleness to be found on it. We basically have a picture of an electricity pole and it's being mirrored, and on top of it we have the titles and everything that has to do with it. But of course they had to screw up the titles as well, because if you look closely you can see that both names of the artists are written in white, and then next to them in tiny letterings in red we have the name of this album, which is Circles, and that's fine and all, except for the fact that the title is already there in the middle, big red circle. So why did you need to put the title in again in this small captions? I really have no idea. Basically, as I said, the basic good old fuck you cover. Fuck you Circles, I don't like you, you're wasting my time 3 out of 10. But that's about it guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video and stay tuned for tomorrow because we're gonna be listening to Forever Blowing Bubbles by the band Clear Light. I of course want to thank my lovely supporters over on Patreon, so thank you so much to Clay Wallum, Ristep Kings and Lindsay Hecox. You guys are just the best, and if any of you want to support me over on Patreon, you can find the link down in the description or in my about page. But that's about it guys, have a wonderful day and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Bye guys.